Here's more wrestling news for April 12th, 2023, and we're starting with Roman Reigns, who next month will reach a milestone not seen in WWE in decades when he reaches 1,000 days as WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. Barring a shocking title change or tragic injury, Reigns will reach this milestone on May 27th, which is already a date on WWE's calendar. May 27th will also be WWE's King and Queen of the Ring event in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, but the show may be about to undergo a major change. According to Zero News, there have been talks within WWE for Queen and King of the Ring to be renamed Night of Champions and to focus more on the 1,000 days of Reigns' run with the gold. There is no word on what this would mean for the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, as in the past, the show gimmick of Night of Champions is for every title to be defended. Whatever the show is called, May 27th will be a monumental event, as it's also rumored to feature the in-ring return of John Cena, and we'll have more answers as we get closer to Reigns' milestone. It was in 2021 that Gable Steveson signed with WWE, fresh off his Olympic gold medal victory in Tokyo. Understandably, expectations were high for WWE's second ever Olympic gold medalist, who began training full-time that October under the tutelage of Fit Finlay. Unfortunately, an ablation to treat Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome sidelined him for a while, and it may be a long time yet before we see him in a WWE ring. This week, it was announced by Team USA Wrestling that Steveson will be competing for the US Open later this month and is attempting to qualify for the US Olympic trials next year. If Steveson goes all the way, then he'll be competing in the 2024 Summer Games in Paris, which will put a lengthy pause on any of his WWE training or plans to enter the squared circle. Steveson has previously expressed his frustration with not being a fully fledged superstar just yet, as it wasn't too long ago that he tweeted that he just wants to wrestle. It's been reported that Steveson's career in WWE hasn't taken off, as he hasn't shown the level of improvement WWE expected of him, and they don't want to put him on TV until they feel the Olympian is truly ready. Steveson has made a couple of appearances for WWE and even delivered a suplex at WrestleMania 38, but a full match continues to elude him, and with the US Open looming, it may be a very long time before he's in a WWE ring. Over to AEW, and after an impressive outing against Chris Jericho last September, both WWE and AEW were eager to sign Bandido, who ultimately went with the All Elite promotion. Sources who spoke to Dave Meltzer at the time explained that Bandido felt that AEW's schedule would give him more time to spend with his family in comparison to the rigorous travel schedule found in WWE. Bandido signing with AEW no doubt came as a disappointment to some, but Bandido isn't counting out the possibility of being a superstar one day. Speaking on So Catch by Hal 2, Bandido said that at some point he'd like to go to WWE, and spoke highly of his brief time with the promotion when WWE was trying to court him. At some point I'd like to go to WWE, not in this moment, but I hope later. I was in WWE, they invited me to the Performance Center, they gave me a Camaro for all my week to drive, that was amazing. I made good amigos. Chris Hero, I saw him in the Performance Center, and now he's a really good friend. I love you, amigo. He's very nice. Whether Bandido ever appears for WWE, only time will tell, and while he has no intention to do that anytime soon, don't count out the idea of Bandido on Raw, Smackdown, or NXT just yet. Would you like to see Bandido make his presence felt on WWE programming? And if so, who would you put the masked star in a feud with? Sound off in the comments. If you've seen Jon Moxley in AEW, you'll know that the former world champion can get violent, far more violent than fans ever saw during his tenure in WWE. Moxley is also known for his blading, with many believing that he bleeds far too often, and now a true legend of wrestling has seen enough. Speaking with HN Live, Bret Hart was asked about the current state of pro wrestling and made it very clear that he's not a fan of what Moxley is doing in AEW. He said, "AEW's kind of gone in a bad direction, I think, with all the violence and gore. I watched some episodes, you know. I watched Martha Hart do her big press conference for AEW here in Calgary. I'm watching AEW and I'm watching Jon Moxley, who used to be Dean Ambrose, sticking a fork in somebody's head for like 5 minutes with a close-up on TV. This isn't wrestling either. I would recommend turning all that off. I don't watch that stuff anymore. It's not very good. Wrestling is going in some bad directions because people don't know what wrestling is or wrestling was." Brett isn't alone in his assertion, as many believe that AEW pushes too far with its violence and that the frequent use of blood makes the actual act of being busted open less of a big deal. Ultimately, Tony Khan will run his company how he sees fit, and while gory matches are certainly what he feels are best, not everyone is a fan of what we've been seeing in AEW. When WWE decided to split up the Hurt Business in 2021, all 4 members of the popular faction fought it backstage, but evidently they were overturned. The stable would reunite and disband once again that year, but it wasn't too long ago that WWE began re-teasing that the group would be getting back together. While MVP had won over Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley proved to be difficult to win over, and it's been some time since there were any teases of the group's reunion. Addressing this on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer revealed that plans for the group to reunite, if there ever was one, have been dropped, saying, "They have totally dropped it. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen MVP around. We haven't seen Cedric or Shelton, nothing." While Lashley was on Raw this week and kicked off his feud with Bronson Reed, there was no mention of MVP or the Hurt Business. And are you disappointed that the group won't be reuniting after all? Earlier this month, the wrestling world lost Bob Miller, better known to fans as Bushwhacker Butch. Miller made it to Los Angeles for WrestleCon before he was later transported to a hospital and died, and some big names in wrestling are trying to help his family out. Miller's family are currently facing financial hardship due to both covering his medical expenses and the funeral costs, and a GoFundMe has reached over $23,000 already. Among the top names who have donated include AEW's Tony Khan and Chris Jericho, who have both donated $5,000 each, while ROH alum Kerry Silkin has donated $500 to help out. This is hardly the first time Khan and Jericho have given generously, as after the death of Sarah Lee, Khan donated $10,000 and Jericho $2,500 to her husband Wesley Blake and their children. No amount of money will bring Bushwhacker Butch back, but these generous donations will no doubt be put to good use, and our thoughts remain with the Miller family at this sad time. For years, Rey Mysterio has wowed fans with his skills in the ring, but the WWE Hall of Famer has had plenty of injuries to his name. Mysterio has had multiple knee surgeries throughout his career, which have caused him to slow down in the ring, and this week, Rey opened up about the side effects of these injuries. On the Impulsive podcast, Rey admitted that the pressures of getting better and being one of WWE's top stars again caught up to him, as he explained, "During my big run with WWE and after so many knee surgeries, I got hooked on painkillers for a long time, and my wife caught me. One time we were on vacation, she saw that I was out of it completely. So she gave me an ultimatum. She goes, so when we get back home, you can either take your pills or you can take your family. That really opened me up, man, and it made me a stronger person. And I remember getting back to San Diego, flew to TV the next day, spoke to Vince, and I told him, boss, I need to check myself in. I'm gonna need some time off. He was cool with it. He was like, it takes a man to man up to what you're doing. So that was a big life changer for me. A different perspective of life and the appreciation of family. And the support of my wife. It's crazy. Yeah, she's been there from day one. Rey was thankfully able to overcome this addiction and has had one of the greatest careers in WWE history. And it goes to show that even the most popular and beloved of wrestlers can have deep struggles when the cameras aren't rolling. For 3 seasons, Vice's Dark Side of the Ring have covered some of wrestling's biggest controversies, from the Montreal Screwjob to the Chris Benoit tragedy. After season 3 wrapped up, it was unclear if the show would get a 4th run, but now we know what will be covered in the upcoming season. Variety were the ones to break the news that season 4 will consist of 10 episodes and revealed that Marty Jannetty and his troubled life will be one of the subjects. Other topics covered on the upcoming season will include the relationship of Chris Candido and Tammy Sytch, the career and troubled life of Abdullah the Butcher, as well as the car accident that derailed the career of a man who would have no doubt become a world champion, Magnum TA. The wrestling world has plenty of controversies from its past and present to delve into, and fans can expect to learn much more about these topics and others when Season 4 premieres. When Bayley didn't appear with Damage Control last week, and there was no mention of her on commentary, fans began to suspect that they'd seen the last of the role model in WWE. That isn't the case, as Bayley was on this week's Raw and back alongside Io Sky and Dakota Kai, but Vince Russo doesn't see what the fuss was all about. After a breakup was teased on this week's Raw, with both Kai and Sky saying they deserve a shot at the Raw Women's title, Russo took to his Legion of Raw podcast to say that no one will care if the group splits. Nobody's gonna care about any of this, none of this. It doesn't matter what they do. They turn on Bayley, Bayley turns on them, who cares? In order to care, they have to be at some level over. When they're never over, you're never gonna care, so at this point, it's too late for us to care. It's too late. That ship has sailed, bro. Bayley has said that the idea for a heel women's stable is something she'd been hoping for years, and believes that it would not have happened if Triple H had not become head of creative last July. At this time, WWE is building its storylines for Backlash, and that could include the implosion of Damage Control. But do you care if Bayley's faction splits or not? In 2021, WWE released Kalisto as part of one of their many budget cuts after a lengthy run with the company for the former US champion. After his release, Kalisto was eager to get back to work and start the post-WWE chapter of his career, but things nearly took a tragic turn. On the sessions, Kalisto, now working under the name Samurai Del Sol, revealed that he contracted COVID mere months after his release, and it seriously messed him up. Not wanting to deal with exorbitant hospital bills, Kalisto opted against seeking treatment and said that during a 2-week period he became delusional and his brain was fried. By the time Kalisto agreed to go to the hospital, the doctors said that they would need to put him in a coma, but Kalisto's wife said that if they did, he wouldn't come out of it. Perhaps the scariest part of the entire ordeal was when Kalisto's heart needed to be stopped and restarted, and the ex-superstar estimated that he spent 2.5 months in the ER. Kalisto was eventually released and was grateful to be alive, and it was 3 weeks later that Tony Khan rung and offered him a match in AEW against FTR. Now Kalisto is COVID-free and ready to move on with his life and wrestling career, but he'll never forget how close he got to losing his life due to COVID-19. And we're ending today with the WWE Universe, and when a show or storyline isn't going their way, some fans respond by hijacking the show. Last Friday, fans planned to hijack Smackdown and try to force the removal of Vince McMahon from WWE, but the executive chairman isn't worried. On his Oh You Didn't Know podcast, Road Dogg Jesse James says that McMahon doesn't sweat fans trying to hijack shows, as at the end of the day, those fans have already paid their money to WWE to be there. Road Dogg added that this was Vince's policy when it came to John Cena, as during the heights of the anti-Cena movement, fans were willing to pay WWE week after week to attend shows and badmouth John. Fans may want to hijack WWE shows when they attend, but to do that, they have to give Vince McMahon money. And in the end, those fans will be adding to the vast fortune WWE has at its disposal.